Understanding Human Relations and Organizational Behavior in the Marketplace. Chapter 1 is where we start our discussion today. When we look at HR and OB and the marketplace has a structure. There's an industry framework that's already been built and is in place. Consumer behavior, which is a critical piece of HR and OB, will be part of that framework in the marketplace. Global marketing, as well as marketing segmentation, make up components of the marketplace. Value and how we build the value proposition is important. And then, of course, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or our SWOT and SWOT analysis, become critical components. And business as a framework within an industry, the businesses that we operate in, this industry structure starts with something that we call like a pure monopoly. So this is the single firm, post office, utilities, government regulated type of entity. There are also oligopolies out there. These are small number of firms like oil and steel manufacturers that differentiate their products and services with few companies in a competitive market. There is monopolistic competition, a small number of firms that operate within a certain genre area, and they focus on the marketing segments to meet the consumer needs, like restaurants or beauty salons. And then what most of us are accustomed to, and that's pure competition. And with pure competition, we have a lot of firms. We have a lot of competitors, a lot of activity from a capitalistic standpoint, and then limited government intervention or regulation. Now, the OB and HR, organizational behavior and human relations folks, are looking for new ways to be innovative in motivating consumer behavior and stimulating people to take action. And one of the ways that they can do that is through marketing. So we'll talk a little bit more about marketing here in a few minutes, but we want to really look at what do we do to motivate people to create a value proposition for them. So in order to do that, we can look at it a couple of ways. One is through influencing factors such as someone's culture, their psychic, their social upbringing, and then their personal beliefs and trust and values. The other way to look at it is from a decision making factor. And so their need recognition, their ability to collect information, the value proposition and value assessment. But I think what's most important when we look at organizational behavior and human relations is that we need both influencing factors and decision making factors to come into play in order to stimulate people, whether it be consumers, employees, stakeholders, stockholders, people who run organizations, frontline employees. It doesn't matter. That motivation and stimulation is extremely important to the proposition in this marketplace that you might operate in with your business. So, with that said, kind of looking at that individual piece of it, we also need to understand that people are going to operate in groups. So, we need to differentiate between groups and teams or work groups. So, groups on the left hand side are indeterminate size. They normally have a common interest, a sense of being a part of something. They're interdependent as much as individuals would like to be. Little responsibility, little accountability, and the group doesn't necessarily have a focus to work on toward goals and accomplishment. So, not as productive or efficient as we might like for them to be in a workplace setting. Whereas if we flip over to the other side of this particular slide, we know that teams are a little different. Usually, teams are restricted in size. That's so you can control not only the personnel or the people in the team, but also to control the environment. So they have these overarching common objectives. The interaction is to accomplish individual and group goals. There's an interdependency, there's shared responsibility and accountability, and they work together. So one of the key elements that draws the line between groups and teams is the fact that there are goals there that people work toward in a team, and in a group that's not necessarily the case. Now if we take that thought process a little bit further, why teams are then so important during their organizational development, it's because they go through this pendulum or this progression. And so the status quo in work, that's being done in the workplace today, there's little teamwork needed initially in a mode, and so this it's more like a group than it is a team. And then they progressively, as a group transforming into a team, start to get in a cooperative mode. And the work, although still potentially uncertain in some areas, it starts to formulate. And then when they get to a team mode, they actually have more uncertainty, but they're working together in order to find out how to be able to reach or obtain the goals that they have been put in front of them. So let's switch our discussion back to that consumer behavior, individual type of thought process. And so one of the ways that we look at being able to understand consumer behavior from an HR and OB perspective is understanding family. Family has been extensively researched, a highly influenced reference group. And it really is a foundation for individuals and teams within organizations. A lot of people belong to groups, and there's a membership thought process around it, whether that's direct or from a reference standpoint. And then you have a role within a group or even within your family where there's an expected behavior by you, and there are various roles that you will evolve to over the course of your life. So that leads us to understanding again, and this is a critical piece. Consumer behavior is so important to human relations and organizational behavior. That leads us to how do we motivate, because motivation is extremely important. And so motivation gives us this energizing force. So you can look at people like Freud, Maslow, Herzberg. They have important theories on motivation. And I can't stress that enough when we're looking to move or persuade consumer behavior. It not only helps marketers, it helps HR and OB folks understand in the marketplace how to use the consumer analysis information that they gather, and then most importantly, how to be able to develop strategy. This puts them in a position to not only learn, but understand that individuals' behavior is usually influenced by the learning experience. And then you start to get consumers to have product, service, or even company loyalty. Loyalty is important when moving consumer behavior and looking at the organization's behavioral fabric overall. Why? Because loyalty speaks to either trust, respect, and responsibility, or the lack of it if you don't have loyalty. But that's important for a business when you've got hundreds, thousands, even millions of people involved in your organization, depending on what you're doing and what you may be selling. And then last but not least, attitude. So a person's evaluations, their feelings, their actions toward an object or another person are extremely important toward the decision-making process, and they're shaped by the values and beliefs that we have. So this slide really depicts why HR and OB is so important in the marketplaces, because we are moving and influencing consumers and employees and people on a consistent basis. And it has quite a bit of emphasis in this whole discussion around the topic in the marketplace. So global marketing, because we don't operate locally anymore. When you put up a website, you are operating globally. And as a result of that, you really have to pay close attention, again, to the organization's performance, which ties to its behavior, its strategy, and how it makes technological advancements. How do we do that? Assessment allows us to be able to do that. Whereas we have to be able to understand that there are going to be environmental opportunities, government interaction, consumer strengths that we can build upon. And as a result of that, our strategy could potentially be stronger by centering ourselves around the 5 Ps in marketing, which we'll talk a little bit about. But more than anything else, we're speaking to how to analyze the information that's put in front of us. From there, we really look at our strategy and really the global targeting and marketing segmentation. Again, in order to be able to do this, there's almost as if there needs to be a very strong tie between HR and OB people and marketing people. And that's why we make this correlation in this particular slide, because competitors, suppliers, supply and demand itself, integrated marketing are all interwoven into HR and OB, because you have to be able to adapt to the changes within the market. And then last but not least, we have to build a strategy and a plan that others can follow and communicate and be adaptive to change in regard to. So this is application. How do we apply those things from a global standpoint? Now let's take that marketing discussion just a little bit further and go into segmentation. So the goal is to segment the market so we understand why consumers do what they do, how they do it, how they change. But the strategy is to either mass market to segments, or have niche marketing. As a result of that, the tactics that we pull on the far right hand side, you can see are applicable. For example, if we did mass promotion, that would be aligned with mass marketing. Or if we did distribution of various types, that would get into marketing segmentation. And niche marketing may be varied distribution choices or targeted communications. Here's the point that you pull from this: you have to, as a foundation, understand human relations and organizational behavior in order to then build an effective marketing plan. So these two elements walk hand in hand, and it's critical for today's 21st century marketplace and workplace. Why? Because with the advent of the internet, we work incredibly fast and we operate in a way that information can be disseminated and distributed extremely quickly. And technology allows us to be able to access it even more quickly. So this particular relationship is even more important today. So, how do we build value from the customer's perspective? Well, once we understand the customer and what moves them, and then what the organization can do in order to build better relations with the customer, then we're in a better position to build that value proposition. Now, using the marketing example here, we really use the 5 P's of price, product, place, position, and promotion. But we also have influencers, such as things that are situational, that are social and psychological, that can help us build that value proposition from the customer's perspective. And that's always important. But the real foundation for where we starts with leveraging the SWOT. And SWOT is nothing more than looking at the favorable and unfavorable aspects of our business and trying to find a way to analyze those to make us more effective in the long run. So strengths and opportunities are considered to be favorable, even though strengths are internal, opportunities are external. Weaknesses and threats are considered to be unfavorable, even though weaknesses are internal, threats are external. But what's most significant about our SWOT as we start to build a model or framework such as this is how we analyze the information. So we can compare our strengths against our opportunities and then ask ourselves the honest question: what are we going to do about it? So internally, we may be good with people. Externally, we may not market effectively to people. What are we going to do about that? Or weaknesses compared to opportunities, weaknesses compared to threats, strengths compared to threats. So this starts the analytical side of the SWOT and puts us in a better position to be able to understand the human interaction and relations we can build in our organizations and then change the behavior to a more positive spin. Here are some definitions that might be helpful for you. Behavior of individuals, a consumer behavior component, buying goods and services for private consumption, the value proposition that we just talked about, how to market a particular product, and then the benefits of delivering that product to the price that is supposed to be charged. Social needs, looking at personal innate feelings of deprivation, primary group, which is extremely important, groups from that perspective, members of a family or peers, and who have an effect on a consumer spending or purchase behavior, and then lifestyle. This pattern of living we have based upon activities, interests, and opinions, more the totality of a person. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned that the marketplace is not this place where there is a vast amount of activity going on, not exclusively. We should have learned that human relations and organizational behavior is actually a foundation for understanding the marketplace, because we have to have that touch with the person. We have to know enough about them to create value, to be able to market effectively, to develop goals and strategy and segmentation, and then to be able to guarantee some type of sustained success for our organization overall. So how do I develop this type of structure in a capitalistic society that we operate in? Well, we understand at the ground level how HR and OB can impact the marketplace, either positively or negatively, depending upon our approach and how much attention we pay to detail. Here is your thought for the day. The more we do, the more we can do.